right, everybody, thanks for waiting.
Ooh, the rock, paper, scissors.
I'm Michael Heup. I'm in the booth with Lester Smerling. I didn't. Let me update this name. Sorry about this. I thought I saved it.
I think we decided that he couldn't play with the Dark Ritual playmat because it's too much mana, so he's packing it up.
Let's get our player one name. I need to update that. Brandon Adams. Okay. So here we go. All right. Now that I got that fixed, he is playing the Devourer combo. He's up against Lewis Kaplan. Lewis is playing the Landstill deck. So I'm a little more familiar with Lewis. Do you know Brandon Adams? Is that a name that you recognize?
I am not familiar with him.
Okay. So Lewis, I know, is newer to the Premodern format, and once he decided that he was going to the tournament, he was testing out some of the decks with some of the Madison crew. And I think originally he was planning on playing the full English breakfast deck, but then after a little bit of testing, he did not like the consistency of the mana base. He felt like he took too much, and he felt like the blue-white deck was just pretty much doing what it needed to do against all the decks. So it seemed like after some of the games, he moved over to the blue-white plan, and that's what he settled on. So I think both of these players are 3-0, and so it looks like it's been serving Lewis pretty well.
Landstill just beat a full foil mono black control deck last round. It was rather impressive.
Like Cabal Coffers?
Cabal Coffers, yep. Somebody suggested that and got shot down a few weeks ago. But it was,
they can start, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're looking at this matchup is obviously counterspells are going to be a big player. Like the Devourer combo deck, if you're not familiar, what it's trying to do is get Phyrexian Devourer in play, and then it's going to combine it either with Altar of Dementia and Fling. And while Phyrexian Devourer is a 6-mana card, it isn't always just cast in this deck. A lot of times it's Tinker is the way that it's brought out. So
this is one of the few decks that Tinker's actually very good in.
Yeah.
Tinker's not as cool as it should be, maybe.
But I guess kind of the scary thing is casting Tinker against counter magic is kind of something that you don't always want to do.
So we have one piece of the combo. We already have in play. We have a reader.
Okay. So the Altar of Dementia.
Yep.
So that will allow to mill cards. Oh man, I got the set wrong. Tempest. Okay. Yeah. So Lewis will respond by casting Standstill. So
Standstill here is a little bit dangerous. He may not be fully familiar with the format or what the deck is.
Well, I mean, at this point, yes, there's a possibility that Brandon just could win. He could go Island, Jeweled Amulet, Tinker, Phyrexian Devourer, and just win the game.
Yep.
But there are certain hands from Lewis that you spend one turn with your counter magic down, and then you're kind of good. Because here it seems like a pretty good exchange.
Yeah.
I guess he might have to discard a number of cards, but
he's got some dead cards probably. Swords, Wrath of Gods.
Yep.
So there's some stuff he just doesn't care about in this matchup if he knows the matchup. I imagine he did enough research to know about this deck.
Yeah, and then it just kind of comes into knowing exactly what the important cards are. Sometimes you think a creature combo card that Swords of Polishers might be okay, but obviously with this combo it doesn't interact at all. But
so defense grid is rather important.
Yes, this you can have the blue-white player draw a bunch of cards and not really care at all if you have a defense grid in play.
Yep. No, he might. Depending on the draw, you might want to try getting Dust Bowl online. Trying to kill that tomb.
So here we see Lewis is forced to cast Impulse during his main phase because of the defense grade.
Yep. Fistful of counters. Nothing here is really helpful at all.
Yeah, counter spells aren't good. There's I think a Disenchant and a Dismantling Blow. Yep. Those are the key cards, but this is kind of a tricky situation that I think if Brandon has the combo, you feel really safe here, obviously, with a defense grid.
You feel extremely safe.
So
discarding counterspell, I'd love to see it from the Devourer side. Now, the Mistress Factory does present a clock because he is hurting himself. He's really hurt himself here.
Yeah, taking 4. So
6 mana, boom, he's got a combo.
Yep, and so if you're not familiar, we kind of briefly talked about this. So Brandon's able to exile a card off the top of his deck to increase the power of Phyrexian Devourer. And while there is a trigger that...
you should look through the deck here.
There is a trigger that would have to sacrifice itself, but you're able to respond to it. So yeah, Lewis will get to see some cards, at least to the point where the power and toughness is greater than the number of cards in Lewis's deck. So
now it's important to mention Lewis isn't being a jerk here. He's just making sure that everything. He's just walking through it.
Yep. And I mean, it's one of those things like, okay.
Yeah.
So Brandon's explaining that yes, there is a trigger that will go on for Phyrexian Devourer.
Offer limbs, look through the deck. This is all great.
Yep. Okay. So Lewis is gonna get a little familiar. He's reading Jeweled Amulet. So yeah. So if you guys aren't familiar with that one, basically it's kind of like a mana thing that you put mana in to get out later. That's I guess the layman's terms of saying what it is. But I can bring that one up. But so Lewis is gonna get a little bit of information and try and get familiar and trying to use that to his advantage in the future games. But I mean, the way the sequence of these turns for Brandon went,
that's perfect.
Yeah, I guess, you knew the defense card was going to resolve because of the Lewis was tapped out, and then basically, then the shields were down. So
Lewis gets a bunch of help after sideboard. He gets a nose. He gets powder keg. Possibly Dust Bowl. Possibly Furnaces. He's got a lot of dead cards to get rid of here.
Yeah, well, Swords of the Polishers and Wrath of God are cards that. I mean, it's possible that Lewis isn't we saw him look through the deck that he might not know. He might fear a transition package that you come into some welder reanimator deck. I don't know, but
Adam's actually trying to show us.
Okay, so
Brandon's showing us the sideboard.
I saw some red elemental blast.
It looks like beta red elemental blast, which is always nice. That's kind of classy, showing us the sideboard.
Yeah.
Looks like you got some nice foils in there too.
So
that's one of the cool things with this format. Walking around here, people gonna play out their cool old cards.
I should mention. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
The list that Brandon is playing, it's not just the traditional Devourer combo. He is playing Oath of the Druids, which has kind of been the new
flavor.
Yeah, you obviously in this matchup it's not at its best, but that is something to note.
We actually see him side note the full combo, the full Oath combo.
Okay.
All blessings, all ulcers came out.
I mean, I think that makes sense. I mean, the Oath is a pretty poor card against the deck with 0 creatures.
There we go. Great again, showing us. That's awesome. Yeah, it's not great. Not where you want to be.
So yeah, I think cards that Lewis is looking to take out, Swords Plushers and Wrath of God are the
best 7.
The cards I'm thinking first, and then beyond that, I mean all the other cards.
Humility. Humility is actually good.
Yeah. So cards like Annul and I think Powder Keg would be the first cards that I would bring in, and then. I mean, you talked about Dust Bowl. You also could bring in Circle Protection Red to protect yourself against Fling.
That's true.
Fling does have, right? I can never remember this. If Fling is the source of the damage, or if the creature is the source of the damage. I think Fling would. Okay. Yeah, so it would be a red source, and then Circle Protection would deal damage, or would prevent that damage.
I don't think that was even on his radar. I don't see him grabbing that at all.
I mean, it's pretty situational because then I mean it doesn't even. You could just get Altar of Dementia kind of thing. Yeah. So
I mean, in that regard, you could also bring in Hydroblast, but you're not.
Well, you might have an anticipation of if you saw. Well, I guess Lewis didn't really even see red mana, but I guess you see Fling. But
he looked through the deck,
But you could anticipate a card like Red Elementalist coming in.
Yep.
So maybe the Blue Blast are better than some of the cards that I talked about, like Phyrexian Furnace or something.
Furnace is a great cyber card. You can always just cycle it,
Well, that's kind of what it is. Like you have so many dead cards that you're boarding out that it's kind of like, you just have a card that you have to put a little bit of mana in at one point, but then you can replace it. It's cycling. So
only having one disenchant, one dismantling blow in this format is a little bit light actually. There's a lot of artifacts and enchantments that you do on the target, so that's a little bit light for
I mean, the extra annuls in the sideboard, I think, is usually kind of your game plan is to prevent it from. Because I guess I'm trying to think how many, other than like a seal of cleansing, like most of the enchantments and artifacts need to stay in play. It's not like they're doing something when they come into play. So annul, for the most part, is the same as like a disenchant, but being able to deploy it for 1 mana is.
It's huge.
And like could come into play against a card like Defense Grid where you might be able to pay the tax. Like some people in their mind might just be that like when Defense Grid's in play they just can't play anything on your turn, but you actually, if you have enough mana, you are able to cast stuff still.
Yeah. It's great too against one of my favorite decks is the lands deck. You can just counter that first turn exploration, which is always huge. I mean, and that was a great sideboard card too.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it in the list that I've played it in. So yeah, I mean, I think the Devour combo deck is kind of set up like you're aware that there's a deck with a bunch of counter spells and cards like Defense Grid and like the Red Elemental Blast. I think Brandon is more prepared on paper than Lewis is for this matchup.
So Lewis has got his disenchant. He's got the right disenchant too. he selected the right artwork. I can't imagine he's going to. I don't know, it's tough if he's going to turn 2 Standstill or not against this deck. He did just get an explosive start.
A lot of times, like if you have a bunch of lands in play, then I'm more keen to, or a bunch of lands in hand, I'm more keen to play the Standstill. Because then if your opponent does decide I'm going to not crack this right away, that you're able to kind of take advantage of it. But, I mean, I think Brandon, we saw how, well, I guess if he's able to resolve a card like Defense Grid, he's kind of happy if Lewis taps out for Standstill. So yeah, it's kind of tricky when Lewis, I mean, maybe you play it on turn 4 that you have Standstill and then a counterspell. So we'll see if Lewis does, because I do think he has both counterspell and Standstill in his hand. So
and
we'll see. Okay.
You guys Tomb again.
Ancient Tomb will power out the Altar of Dementia, so same sequence that we saw in game 1.
Yeah, so now he's got 2 counter spells in hand. He's probably going to hold up, I think.
Yeah, I think I would, unless you're really short on mana, which he's got, at least I saw another land. So I think if you didn't have any other lands in play, then I would run off the Standstill, but if I have extra mana, then...
I think you just disenchant here, right?
Yeah. So, we see the disenchant pointed at the altar.
Great play. Oh, man, he just got the dismantling blow, too.
All right, well, that one, I mean, in this matchup, I think you'd be fine for it just being a
3 mana?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
But, I mean, it's always nice when you get to kick it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lewis has kind of fought off, I guess, at least the point where he doesn't feel like he's going to die next turn. Like, is this a position you think like is pretty heavily in favor for Lewis, or do you think are we just still dead even? There's too much.
Well, he's definitely doing good. Now that seal cleansing is actually a little bit of an issue. He's gonna want to try to get him to kill a Mistress faction, maybe bait him with it, because that just shuts down Standstill, of course.
Yeah. Would you ever be willing to just trade Standstill for seal cleansing?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got another Standstill in hand, or you got something else you're gonna come at him with. There we see, and there's Defense Grid. Now this is where Prohibit would be huge, of course. But this almost feels like a bait, right?
Well, I mean, it kind of is anyways. Like, I mean, if for the most part, barring a lot of mana, if you're not countering the Defense Grid, you're not countering the other spells. So.
Right. Yeah, but he did have a chance to go land, dismantling blow, keep 2 up for counterspell.
Okay.
But he's so outmaned right now.
And did Lewis play a land that turn?
He did not. He missed.
Okay, so that's kind of. Oh, he's got Factor Fiction.
He does have Factor Fiction. Yep. Now it's just if Brandon can keep him busy and off his Factor Fiction, he can't. Alright, so now we see a second Standstill, so the seal cleansing is less effective. That's a fast split.
It's kind of interesting. like you do when someone does miss a land drop and they cast Factor Fiction, then I feel like Brandon has like a lot of information or a lot of power. I guess like the power of knowing that you don't have extra lands. I think you can take advantage of a lot of Factor Fiction splits. But yeah, I don't know if impulse was the right way, but it was very quick, confident split with that faction. Like that is one of the fastest Factor Fictions I've seen. And usually when that is when they hit their one outer and you need to 4-1 something. But, so Lewis took the bigger pile. It was right.
Yep, he took the bigger pile. He's got an impulse, a standstill from it, and a land. Boom. He drew a land too, and he doesn't have to discard, which is huge.
All right. I mean, he has 2 stances. Would you be willing to like just throw one out there? I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the problem is like if Brandon does crack it right away, you might be. He's going to just cast Factor Fiction.
Yep.
Get the
So
expensive spells out of
I
his
think
hand.
he's trying to build up more mana too, so that he can go standstill, and then have 2 counters.
Well, this split is going to take a little bit longer, I guess.
Yeah.
There's 2 counter spells: Humility, Mishra's Factory, and Flooded Strand. So Humility is an interesting card because like once that's in play, are you looking to take counter spells here?
I think you take the counter spells. That's interesting.
Well, especially like on this board, say that there is a Seal of Cleansing in play, like Brandon, like because he doesn't know about the dismantling blow, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so Lewis takes counterspell, and Flooded Strand.
So now he's gonna have 10 cards though. He's gotten a bunch of cards here. I think now you just go for a standstill.
So yeah, Lewis just wants to hit his land drops every turn and get this game to the late game where the Landstill deck really excels. He'll discard a standstill. Okay.
Okay, that was interesting.
So Brandon does have a bunch of cards, but
Lewis just has so many cards that he doesn't care about the card advantage from standstill at this point, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's kind of like almost that Lewis' hand is sculpted from the last 2 Factor Fictions.
It really is. He's gonna pop the standstill here. He's still got a lot of that. I'm wondering what the seal is being held up for at this point. Humility's gone. Maybe he thinks there's another one.
So that's a Tormod's Crypt out of Brandon. What is he trying to fight from Lewis? I'm not sure.
I think the Tormod Crypt is just necessary for Tinker.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if it.
Yeah. You need stuff. It's probably something you just never side out.
Okay. Oh, he has them in the main. Oh, he does. He does have a Tormod's Crypt in the main. So.
Yep. All right. So now we're gonna fight counterspell on Devourer. Yeah. So at this point, Landstill is in a commanding position here.
How many Devourer players do you think have ever just like tried to run out the Devourer and just be like, I'm gonna use its ability once or twice, just make it into like a 5/5 and attack? It just feels so risky. But I mean, also like, if you have to counter it anyways, you have to anticipate that the standstill player is taking out a card like Source of Plowshares. Yeah. So like, would that ever be a strategy that Brandon could kind of risk?
Look, we saw Caleb get down and dirty and attack with creatures, so it's definitely a thing that you have to do sometimes. I mean, it is definitely a card.
It's kind of fun, like whenever you have to activate the ability and don't want it to die, your heart gets pounding a little bit. You get a little bit. I mean, there are some big hits. Like if you hit another Devourer, then it's very likely that it's
that's really the only big hit, though, right?
I guess that's true. Like Tinker's 3, and are there Factor Fictions in his list?
No.
Okay, because some of the blue-red ones play that. But.
So that's really the big hit.
I guess, you probably have a pretty decent amount of control. Yeah,
you can probably, on average, get it twice. I mean, he's just ripping through his deck right now. He's just looking for a decree at this point.
Yep, and
Dust Bowl's huge.
Yeah, I guess if you just have...
Dust Bowl's huge.
Okay, but yeah, if you just have decree, then it kind of turns all these turns into a clock. Yeah. And I think, Lewis is probably pretty aggressively just trying to find a decree so that...
Now, Fairy Conclave might be huge, too, simply because... never mind. Simply because that's a clock that can't be killed by the seal.
Yep.
Yeah, you almost. Well, it wouldn't be a good play. I was gonna say you almost want to just cast or play the Mishras, activate, attack it, and then sack it to Dust Bowl. But that's so much mana. There we go.
Okay, so here a decree.
Interesting that even the grinder sometimes casts these cards wrong.
All right, we got the soldier tokens to play.
Yep.
I think that was that 4, 5? Should be 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so clock is real. I think Brandon is still at 18, but either way, he's got a problem that he needs to deal with.
Yeah.
And I mean, Brandon hasn't really tested Lewis very much, like since the first few turns. Like,
No.
Well,
you know, he's got. I mean, look at how many Lotus Petals he has. Yeah.
Okay, he does have it. Technically, he does have the combo, but he knows about all the counter spells.
He
that
knows
are in
that he
his
gave
hand,
him
so.
at least 2 counter spells.
Yep. So I think Brandon is trying to hope for a position that if he just goes like runner to disrupt.
That's $60 he just showed us right there.
That's not the runner that he was looking for.
So Lewis actually just discards swords, so he actually left one in.
Okay.
There we go.
Might as well play those Lotus Petals,
Yeah,
right?
he's built up Storm.
Well, he might. I mean, Lewis might counter this, right?
Storm is at 3 right now, guys. Okay, and that makes it much more dangerous. You could pay for Mana Leak, of course. You could pay for possibly more than 1 Mana Leak.
We're getting a metagame breakdown from BK. So looks like I think Stasis is the most popular deck. There's 5 copies, and then there's
one sweet blue-green version out there too.
Okay, there's 4 Standstill lists, 4 Blue-Green Madness, 3 Slide, 3 Goblins, 2 Elves, 2 Solution, 2 Slide, 2 Storm. There's a
there's 1 Equipose deck.
2 Allurans. 2 Allurans is probably like the most surprising thing, I think.
Well, I mean, 1 Allure and 1 Bug Garble Beatdown.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I talked about that. He said it's the first time he's ever beat someone with creatures, so that was interesting.
All right. Well, I had my head down when Brandon was trying to cast this, but I have to imagine now he's taking 5 more damage from this attack from Lewis, and Lewis is just keen to pass the turn because this game's pretty much over.
Yeah.
All right. So Brandon will scoop it up. We'll move on to game 3, and I mean it was kind of just a lopsided game for each player. Like the first one, it was a clinic for Brandon that he got what he needed, and the second game, it seemed like everything happened that Lewis wanted to. Like nothing happened quick, and he was able to just hit his land drops and cast a bunch of spells.
Yep. Oh, he actually sided out Decree. No, yeah, he sided out a Decree.
Well,
or maybe siding one in.
He does have one on the board.
Okay.
He talked about he was worried about the mirror and like trying to get an edge, and I think he's just looking to bring in a 4th Decree in those matchups.
Yep. Makes sense. I mean, leaving 1 Swords of Falchion isn't the worst. I think he just took it out though. But there's a chance your opponent might cast a creature and start beating down. It's a lot of mana though. Yeah, that's the entire meta breakdown.
Well, I mean, we looked at this other column, and these are all one player playing this deck. Because this is not up to 47, so yeah, there's a lot of variety. Like it's
a Squirrel deck, a Fires deck.
Yeah, there's
Stifle Knot.
Like there are probably like 15 to 20 decks that have 1 copy, and then the most copies we have is 5 and 4. So yeah, very very diverse, which is kind of one of the.
No, only 1 rock deck, and I know he's 0-3 right now.
Oh no.
Yeah, only 1 rock deck which is shocking. Mono black controls and all foil decks kind of sweet. So yeah, we are gonna get some variety probably. So yeah, that was a clinic on just being able to just rip through your deck and find what you want to have.
Any dead guy ale? I believe I saw one.
There's definitely one.
Yeah, I think I
Yep.
saw it.
Yep. One dead guy ale, and he
Yes.
even had Wastelands in his deck. I don't know
Yep.
how his mana base works, but he had Wasteland too.
Yep.
Yep.
So who are you liking for this third game? Do you think one deck has a bigger edge, or do you
Well-
think it's kind of just a coin flip?
I think Lewis wins if he has a null,
Okay.
and I think that it really just depends. I think that Lewis is still favored, but being able to cast turn 1 defense grid is pretty amazing.
Do we have any tax rack? I don't think
No.
there's there's like traditional tax rack. There is.
The Equipoise deck.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's an Equipoise deck.
No one
that-
playing Pink Prison.
Okay.
There are a few Goblin decks, not as many as we want.
Well, you can never have.
3.
There's 3 goblin decks. I mean, that's.
Yeah, we need 8 for the full top 8.
Well, you don't want like a sly player in there. No. All right. All goblins all the time.
Yeah, no bobbles.
All right. So we see
How's Aaron Dix doing?
the turn 1, Ancient Tomb in defense grid. So I mean that is pretty
It's
much
perfect.
the textbook start. I think that
Yeah,
Brandon wants.
that is perfect.
The question is the rest of his hand as top tier as that first turn?
Yeah.
Jeweled Amulet.
Fielding
Okay.
was, he's got no lands though.
He does have a Mox Diamond.
Yeah, but that doesn't really count as a land. I've cast Mox Diamond in my life. I know you need a land for that bad boy.
All right.
The Disenchant.
Disenchant. So
Man,
the Mercadian Masks guy.
Yeah. if it does any other art, it wouldn't come up nearly as much. Now, with him low on mana like this,
Would you take 2 damage to add because you can add a colorless counter with the Jeweled Amulet.
yeah, but maybe he doesn't know that. But with him this low on life, I think Powder Keg is actually a fine play. Just the Powder Keg on 0.
Okay.
Because you are also taking out a Tinker. Boom. There you go. He might want to let it build.
Okay. I guess like you can make the decision to maybe blow it up if you did charge it up, but okay. So
Maybe he doesn't know he can do colorless.
I think Lewis is looking to put this on 2 to answer a defense
altar?
grid or an altar.
Yeah, that might be.
So. And
I mean, he's got counter spells to get rid of a Tinker. Really, the amulet at this point not being used.
is this something that you would
Counter?
Would
No.
you counter? Well, I
No.
mean, Lewis has a lot of counter magic in his hand.
He does.
I might be.
If he
tempted.
counters that, then he's shields down to the next spell.
Do you have to? You have to discard only when you resolve it.
Only
right?
when it resolves, yeah.
Okay.
So now this is perfect. Now he can counter this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Clearly, this is something you can do.
So yeah. So if he countered the Mox, his shields down. He might have gotten defense grid there or something.
Yeah, but you have the powder keg, at least for a defense grid,
Yeah.
if that's what you're afraid of.
That's
So.
true.
So Mana Leak will answer the Tinker, and so Brandon has to spend his Jeweled Amulet for no cause. He loses the Tinker and the Jeweled Amulet.
And now Lewis has got 2 counters every turn, which
Yep.
is huge.
So-
unless he gets rowdy here.
Well, Lewis could look at it this way: like if he's not hitting land drops, then is Brandon really going to be casting 2 spells in one turn? Then maybe you just want to be chipping in for 2,
Right.
and try and shorten the game.
And he's got the powder keg backup, so that's huge. He's got a white card. I'm not sure if he's got humility or if he's got this mana to blow.
I think it's humility.
Okay.
Brandon takes a peek at
Powder
Powder
keg.
Keg. It's not extra, or it's not less. It has to be equal, and also doesn't get enchantments, which I know a lot of people make that mistake.
And there's a seal.
Okay.
So I think that's worth. Oh, it's definitely worth an all. That's huge.
I kind of want my Powder Keg on 0 suddenly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why we play 2 of them.
Yeah.
Now you'll notice that there's way less card drawing in this game. We're just doing the old-fashioned 1 card a turn.
Yeah, that's the big difference. That if that happened, I think Lewis would just be a runaway. I feel
Yeah.
like, but I think without kind of a big card draw spell, I think Brandon still has the hope of kind of
No.
sneaking this out.
Interesting that Brandon tapped the way he did. Obviously, he wants to keep his life total high, but he could have left one open to bluff a blast, a red elemental blast, or a pyroblast. So he might want to leave one of these Moxes open.
Yeah, I think he's just valuing his life total more. I guess
Yeah.
that's the.
Now he's a little bit under duress. He's really got a lot locked up here. What do you Enlightened Tutor for?
It might just have to be another defense. Well, no, I guess that gets blown up by the powder keg.
Yeah, it might be a seal.
Yeah. It could be Devourer, and then you're looking to Fling and Devour. That's 800 mana.
Yeah.
So Blood Moon.
Blood Moon. Blood Moon's solid.
Um.
It's like a double stone rain in a way.
I mean, where it would bottleneck Lewis is if he's trying to cast multiple counterspells in one turn. But from this, like,
I believe there's 3 more rounds to answer your question.
we have 6 rounds, so this is the 4th round, and so there'd be a 5 and 6, and then we cut the top 8. But yeah, Lewis's position, even with a Blood Moon in play, it seems like there's 2 plains and 2 islands. Like, I guess it stops the Fairy Conclave from attacking, but
yeah.
But I'm saying, like, Lewis could let this resolve and I think still be in decent shape.
I think he just got so many counters that he doesn't need to let it resolve too. Now he's at Standstill. So take a turn off of Fairy Conclave to Standstill. So now the Devourer deck is in just such a bad spot.
Well, yeah, you have to answer Humility. You kind of have to answer Powder Keg.
So City of Solitude. I think... Yeah, I mean, he's getting desperate here, but I think you want to hold up and try to cast 2 things a turn or have...
The problem is that he's been so short on mana. Like, he needs to draw so many lands for that to happen, and I feel like he's just going to die to the Fairy Conclave.
I think Lewis has all 4 counter spells, too. The actual counter spell. Okay. Oh, he's going to forbid no backup. No buyback.
Okay.
Fairy Conclave isn't... I mean, it's a threat, but it does cost 3 mana, basically.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if Brandon's plan is just to say, like, draw, go, and, like, hope to get a bunch of lands, then Lewis can kind of... put on the pressure and kind of limit the number of turns that Brandon could do that. All right, because right now his hand is 2 Devourers and a Fling.
I got 4 tokens.
All right, well, not very many turns for Brandon. So I think this is going to go in Lewis's favor.
Yep.
As a token,
authoritative smash.
Is attacking with 4/1/1s a smash?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When you're a blue-white player.
That's true.
I got them all.
Brandon's seen enough.
Powder Cake doesn't get to kill anything at all. It's got 0 kills on it.
Still, I mean, like, it definitely can change the way that, like, Lewis can play the game if you have access to...
100%.
Yeah, so while it technically didn't do anything, like, it opens up opportunities that Lewis can play in different ways.
That's very true. There's no way that Solitude lives in the City of Solitude. Flavor Judge should definitely rule on that one.
All right, so here we're kind of maybe looking at... So it looks like 3 swords, 3 wraths.
Yeah.
And then...
There has to be something else, though, right?
Oh, there are 4 swords.
He did go all 4 swords at the end.
Okay, maybe because it was the second game that we saw that one of the swords.
He probably just did that for Powder Cake and Nulls and... Powder Cake and Nulls and the Dust Bowl, probably. Oh, he probably wanted the Decree, too.
Sure.
I don't know. We're gonna keep that information secret for the top 8.
Yeah.
Don't want anybody to go back and watch this.
All right, so I don't know if you guys had this conversation when you were in the booth with BK, but if you were playing today, what would you have brought?
So I have the blue-white Tide.
Okay.
Tide control deck.
Yep.
And I have goblins, of course. I was leaning heavily towards blue-white Tide control. I like it a lot.
Do you think? Have you played that in the actual mirror, like the Standstill against Tide? Like who's advantage? Because I've heard people talking about the Tide is advantage, but I don't know. Tapping 4 mana at sorcery speed, especially when the blue deck like has a null in post sideboards, doesn't seem great. But maybe I'm misinterpreting something.
So I actually just played this the other day. I was able to resolve a Factor Fiction game 1, and that pretty much told me that he didn't have any counter spells. So I was able to go for the Tide. Now I cast the Tide originally without the removal right away, just to blank his lands. I was able to get another Tide in play. and then go through and do it. So I felt like I had complete control of the game. You're basically playing Panza, so every time they activate a Mishras or anything like that, you can swords it, and then that's what you want to do anyways. And they don't have many ways to attack you other than their decrees, and you can out-decree them. So even if you're just casting it just as a temporary...
How can you out-decree them? Because I feel like the Tide one usually has less decrees than the typical blue-white.
Because they don't have as many lands.
Oh, okay, so the mana advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
so
what you
even
mean
if you're
by that.
temporarily turning off their lands, you're not actually getting the full combo. I feel like you're just pulling ahead of them in mana. And there's only so many fights that they can fight, is what I look at it too. So yeah, I was able to. I felt like in complete control. I've only played the match once, but I felt like I was in complete control of all the games I played. I think Standstill is not what you want to do too sometimes. Like the Tide deck has 6 mana creatures or 6 land creatures, where the Standstill deck usually plays 4 to 5.
Yeah, they've been on 5. I think older lists used to have 6.
Yeah.
But now I think a lot of them have been just on 1 Fairy Conclave and the
Yeah.
4 Mishras.
Yeah, so Johnny Brainstorm agrees with me because obviously we're geniuses, and says that because you have an action spell, they have to answer it, and that's exactly it.
I'm gonna go check the round clock real quick.
Yep.
We're at 13 minutes left in the round, so I think we'll chat a little bit, and then I did finally get my slideshow ready that I'll be able to deploy
Nice.
that.
How does everybody feel about the Exit Sketch life pads versus pen and paper?
You're talking about the boogie boards?
Yeah, the boogie boards are the Star City ones they had, the miniature ones. I think I like the pen and paper, to be honest with
Well,
you.
I mean, the boogie board makes sense that you just have one thing and you don't have to worry about it. Like, I mean, I don't know how often you run out of paper, but I don't know. There's something about writing it down, I guess. Also, like, if you ever go back, sometimes I can remember like what happened in a match just by looking at the life totals, and sometimes recalling that you don't get with a boogie board. But
Can we point out that the reason that Lewis probably won this one is because he didn't allow the Dark Ritual.
I guess one of the sacrifices you have to make for being on coverage is
Yeah.
you have to use this plain, boring playmat that
Yeah, and he probably praised the Dark Ritual most games to get these wins, and he was denied that.
Yep.
I could see that.
All right. Well, so Chocolate.
Green Black Pestilence and 5. Ooh, Green Black Pestilence is interesting.
I do not know either of those lists.
5 card Wish Control. Yeah, I don't know that list either. You should send them to us so we can copy them and then play them on streams.
Yep.
Pestilence is huge in Pop Ride. You know that.
All right, we're gonna jump back. We get to look at us.
Oh, sweet.
Yep. So
There we are.
we'll do a quick,
Decent-ish.
we'll do a quick little outro before we go to a break. But I don't know. So I guess we know that Lewis is at 4-0 with the blue white Landstill. So he's looking in good shape to be in the top 8. I don't know if it's a mathematical lock. I guess you have to. If you drew, you probably could. I don't know. I'm not gonna worry about it. But
I mean, he was probably a lock to make top 8 when he walked in the door. He usually top 8 these things.
yeah,
So
he's a very good player. So
he's a good player. He's good to play a deck that he gets to make a lot of decisions. This isn't like a Planeswalker format where something just happens. You get it, like every micro decision does count up. So that's always good.
In certain matchups, it definitely compounds. But so really good decision making and understanding.
For Elliot, the reason is because the beard got out of control. The voice hasn't grown with the beard is the problem.
So
Yeah. What would you have played?
I think I would have played the Rock just because I enjoy it. Not as much because I think it's the best deck. I think it's a good deck, and I just enjoy all the games that it plays. Just you could disrupt your opponent enough, and then I feel like I make important decisions, and I feel like I have the ability to outplay people with that deck. And so, yes, the beard appreciation stream. That's what we're turning into.
Yes.
So
Yes. We can. I'm
there's
gonna do an OnlyFans soon where it's just me with the beard.
Wait, how do you know that wasn't directed at my beard?
Oh, that's true. That's true. You are getting one. I think in a few weeks you'll be at this level. It's a little bit longer, actually, people. That goes down.
Yeah. How long did it take you to grow that?
Well, so I had it around this length, and then somebody cut it, They just did
Like
that.
you didn't want them to?
No, she came up behind me and she just did that.
Are you still friends with this person?
No, she was a barber person. So, so from like there down has been 3 years.
Okay.
The rest of it's been about, I don't know, 10 years.
What do you think is the longest it's been?
This is the,
okay.
yeah, this is the longest, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you play with it a lot? Like when you just
Yeah.
is it
You
therapeutic?
stroke through it, yeah. Yeah. It's not therapeutic, it's just you run out of stuff to do. What do you do with yours?
I usually I do touch my face a lot, so I don't know.
see.
But
Yeah.
are there decks that you're looking that we should look to try and find?
So we're probably gonna have to watch at least one stasis deck, which sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's not. The Sanzapose deck was kind of cool. Unfortunately, he lost to Caleb last round.
I guess what I'm going to try and do is I think I'm going to go on a break soon, and I'm going to try and like get a sense of which decks are at the top tables, and then we don't necessarily need to feature them because we're more likely to feature them in the top eight.
That's cool.
And then maybe try and get some decks. I know some people were talking about trying to get Aaron Dix on stream, and he came from Minnesota, and he's someone who's pretty well known in the pre-modern community for playing Sly. So we might try to get him on camera. I guess the biggest downside is we might fear that the match just might be over right away if we put Sly on camera. But
I mean, we can always
pull someone in for a backup if
pull
we
someone
had
in
that
for an
much
interview
time.
maybe or another matchup. Yeah.
Okay. So, is there anything else you want to touch on real quick? Otherwise, I think we're gonna go.
No,
on
I
break.
think the format's really cool. This is a huge turnout.
Yeah, I'm really excited with how many people, and I just like the energy that I feel like a lot of people like, the excitement that the people have. I'm interpreting that they haven't had for a lot of tournaments. Like they might go to certain tournaments, but like, this kind of brings back a nostalgic excitement for that isn't always captured with every tournament.
We had people travel pretty far for this, so it's
Iowa, Minnesota, Chicago.
I could see BK doing this once a month maybe.
He did talk about that he was doing it. I don't exactly remember what he said, but he is planning on doing more. So
That's cool.
if you guys are in the area and you're liking what you're seeing, there are going to be more opportunities to play at Misty Mountain. So,
Yep.
all right, that will conclude our round 4. So we're going to take a short break and we'll get things ready and set up for round 5. So we'll see you back then. We want to thank everyone. We have a lot of viewers. It looks like we're up to like 95 viewers. So really appreciate everyone kind of tuning in and kind of participating in this experience that we're doing. So we're having a lot of fun, and I hope you are as well. So
Perfect.
see you soon.